Imagine living completely free from the opinions of others. No anxiety about judgment. No second-guessing yourself. No compromising your values to fit in.
Friedrich Nietzsche, one of history's most radical philosophers, didn't just imagine this freedom, he demanded it. He called it becoming who you are, and he warned that until you break the chains of social approval, you'll never truly live. Today we explore how Nietzsche's century-old wisdom can transform your life in ways you never thought possible. Are you ready to take the red pill? Today we're diving into the mind of Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century German philosopher whose ideas on individuality and authenticity continue to challenge and inspire us. If you've ever felt trapped by social expectations, paralyzed by fear of judgment, or exhausted from wearing masks to please others, this video is for you. Nietzsche wouldn't just sympathize with your struggle. He'd tell you it's the most important battle of your life. In his view, breaking free from the herd mentality isn't just about personal comfort, it's about nothing less than fulfilling your human potential. But before we begin, I want to offer a warning. Nietzsche's philosophy isn't for the faint of heart. His words aren't meant to make you feel good. They're meant to transform you, and transformation is rarely comfortable. So if you're looking for easy answers or feel-good platitudes, you might want to click away now. Nietzsche observed something fundamental about human psychology, long before modern science confirmed it. We are social creatures wired to seek approval. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he writes about what he calls the herd, the masses of people who find safety in conformity and who fear standing out above all else. According to Nietzsche, most people live their entire lives as members of this herd. They adopt values not because those values serve them, or because they've critically examined them, but simply because those values are widely accepted. They dress certain ways, pursue certain careers, and even hold certain beliefs, primarily because that's what others around them are doing. The surest way to corrupt a youth, Nietzsche wrote, is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. From his perspective, our educational systems, religious institutions, and even family structures are often designed to reinforce conformity rather than encourage independent thinking. But why are we so susceptible to this herd mentality? Nietzsche identified several psychological drivers. First, there's the basic human desire for belonging. We evolved as tribal creatures, and social rejection once meant literal death. So the fear of standing apart from the group triggers ancient survival mechanisms in our brains. Second, there's what Nietzsche called the spirit of gravity, the weight of tradition and established norms that pulls us down and prevents us from creating our own values. It's easier to inherit values than to create them. It's comfortable to follow rather than lead. Third, there's what modern psychologists would call cognitive dissonance. When we see others behaving differently than us, it creates an uncomfortable feeling. What if we're wrong? What if our way of life isn't the best one? Rather than sit with this discomfort, we often double down on conformity. Finally, there's simple laziness. Thinking for yourself is hard work. Evaluating every social norm, questioning inherited wisdom, and creating your own values requires immense intellectual and psychological energy. Many people simply aren't willing to expend that energy. The consequences of this herd mentality are severe. As Nietzsche puts it in The Gay Science, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often, and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. This loneliness frightens us, and so we compromise our authenticity for acceptance. We filter our thoughts before speaking them. We hide our true interests if they're unconventional. We pursue careers that impress others rather than fulfill us. We adopt political opinions that help us fit in with our social circles rather than ones we've arrived at through careful thought. In short, we trade our authenticity for approval, our individuality for inclusion, and in Nietzsche's view, this trade makes us last men, comfortable, safe, but ultimately empty. But there's a deeper problem beyond our personal happiness. Nietzsche believed that humanity's greatest achievements, its art, philosophy, scientific breakthroughs, and moral advances, come not from those who follow the crowd, but from those who think independently. By succumbing to the herd mentality, we rob not only ourselves of our potential, but humanity of our possible contributions. One of Nietzsche's most controversial but illuminating ideas was his concept of slave morality. In his book Beyond Good and Evil, and more thoroughly in On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche presents a radical reinterpretation of how our moral values developed, and how they often serve to keep us subservient to others' expectations. According to Nietzsche, much of our conventional morality originated not from what is truly good for human flourishing, but as a psychological defense mechanism of the weak against the strong. Unable to assert themselves directly, the slaves in society developed a moral system that valorized traits like humility, pity, and equality, traits that protected them from the masters, while simultaneously making them feel morally superior. This isn't just ancient history for Nietzsche. He saw this slave morality operating in his contemporary Christian-influenced European culture, and we can still see it operating today. The underlying message is often the same: don't stand out too much, don't think too highly of yourself, care what others think, prioritize harmony over personal achievement. The mechanisms of this control are sophisticated. Take social media as a modern example. Every time you post something, you likely feel a little anxiety about how it will be received. Will it get likes? Will it be criticized? This system creates a perfect control mechanism where you begin to self-censor based on anticipated reaction. You become your own prison guard, policing your thoughts and expressions before they ever see daylight. Or consider how we judge success in society. Many people measure their worth by metrics. Others have defined the prestige of their job title, the brand of their car, the size of their home, the schools their children attend. Nietzsche would see this as another form of slavery, allowing others to define what your life should look like, rather than determining that for yourself. Even our language contains these control mechanisms. When we label someone selfish for prioritizing their needs, or antisocial for requiring solitude, or weird for having unconventional interests, we're using language to enforce conformity. Nietzsche was acutely aware of how language shapes thought, writing in Beyond Good and Evil that the reputation, name, and appearance, the usual measure and weight of a thing, what it counts for, grows from generation to generation merely because people believe in it, until it gradually grows to be part of the thing and turns into its very body. For Nietzsche, even our concept of truth itself was often a tool of control. He was deeply suspicious of anyone claiming to possess absolute truth, seeing such claims as attempts to shut down independent thinking. This is why he famously proclaimed, "God is dead," not as a simple atheistic statement, but as a recognition that the traditional foundations of moral authority were crumbling, creating both danger and opportunity. So how does this slave morality manifest in everyday life? It's in the person who stays in a job they hate because leaving would disappoint their parents. It's in the student who chooses a practical major rather than pursuing their passion. It's in the countless small compromises we make daily to maintain our social standing. The most insidious aspect is that we internalize these expectations so completely that we mistake them for our own desires. As Nietzsche puts it, man is the cruelest animal. At tragedies, bullfights, and crucifixions he has so far felt best on earth. And when he invented hell for himself, behold, that was his heaven on earth. But Nietzsche didn't just diagnose this condition, he prescribed a remedy, and that remedy begins with the recognition that much of what you think is you is actually an internalized set of expectations from family, friends, culture, and society. True freedom starts with separating your authentic self from these imposed identities. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy lies one of his most misunderstood concepts, the Übermensch, often translated as Superman or Overman. Far from being about genetic superiority or domination over others, as it was later tragically misappropriated by the Nazis, Nietzsche's Übermensch represents the human being who has overcome societal conditioning and created their own values. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche describes this transformation as a three-stage metamorphosis. First, the human spirit is like a camel, carrying the heavy burden of social expectations and inherited values. Next, it becomes a lion, roaring no to external authorities and creating space for new possibilities. Finally, it becomes a child, innocent and ready to create new values with a sacred yes to life. This journey to becoming the Übermensch, or more simply, to becoming who you are, as Nietzsche put it in Ecce Homo, begins with radical self-honesty. You must be willing to question everything you've been taught about what makes a good life, a good person, or a worthy goal. This means asking uncomfortable questions. Do I really want the career I'm pursuing, or is it what my parents expect? Do I actually enjoy the social activities I participate in, or am I just afraid of missing out? Do I truly believe in the political or religious positions I hold, or have I simply absorbed them from my community? Nietzsche encourages what he called the revaluation of all values. This doesn't mean rejecting all conventional wisdom or moral principles automatically. That would just be another form of reactionary thinking. Instead, it means examining each value and asking, does this serve my flourishing? Does this align with my nature? Would I choose this if I were completely free from others' expectations? This process often leads to periods of severe disorientation, which Nietzsche acknowledges. In The Gay Science, he writes about the great liberation that comes to free spirits, like an earthquake. The young soul is all at once shaken, torn, hurled down. It itself does not understand what is happening. A drive and impulse rule and master it like a command. A will and desire awaken to go off, anywhere, at any cost. This disorientation is necessary because authentic living often requires saying no to many things that society values. You might need to reject conventional markers of success, conventional relationship structures, conventional religious beliefs, or conventional political alignments. These rejections create space for what's truly yours. But Nietzsche's philosophy isn't just negative, it's ultimately creative. After clearing away the debris of inherited values, you must build something new. The Übermensch creates values rather than merely consuming them. This is what Nietzsche means when he speaks of the will to power, not domination over others, but creative mastery over oneself and one's life. This creativity expresses itself uniquely in each person. For one, it might mean pursuing an artistic passion despite financial insecurity. For another, it might mean choosing a non-traditional family structure. For still another, it might mean developing a personal philosophical or spiritual practice outside established traditions. The key is that these choices emerge from your authentic nature rather than external pressure. As Nietzsche writes in The Gay Science, "What does your conscience say? You shall become the person you are." This doesn't mean the process is easy. Nietzsche was well aware of the difficulties involved in such radical self-creation. You will face external resistance from those comfortable with conventional values. You will face internal resistance from the parts of yourself still attached to social approval. But for Nietzsche, this struggle itself gives life meaning. In Beyond Good and Evil, he writes, "The spiritual disciplining of the Europeans over the past millennium was an attempt to make man capable of this mastery. The effort to overcome both external conditioning and internal weakness is itself ennobling." 4. The will to power, taking responsibility for your life. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power is perhaps his most profound contribution to understanding human psychology. Often misinterpreted as a call for domination over others, it's actually a complex idea about how humans create meaning and express their vital energy. At its core, the will to power is about overcoming not primarily others, but oneself. It's about imposing form on chaos, structure on randomness, direction on aimlessness. It's the drive that makes the artist shape marble into sculpture, the scientist transform confusion into understanding, the entrepreneur turn vision into reality. When you stop caring what others think, this will to power can finally express itself authentically, rather than being channeled into socially approved forms. Instead of using your energy to maintain appearances or meet external expectations, you can direct it toward what truly matters to you. This redirection of energy is transformative. As Nietzsche writes in Twilight of the Idols, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." By this he means that the challenges we willingly embrace, rather than those forced upon us by social expectations, strengthen our character and expand our capabilities. Taking responsibility for your life means acknowledging a difficult truth. No one is coming to save you or tell you how to live. In a world without absolute moral authorities, what Nietzsche meant by God is dead. Each person must create meaning for themselves. This is simultaneously terrifying and liberating. The terrifying aspect is what Nietzsche called the abyss. In Beyond Good and Evil, he warns, when you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. Confronting complete freedom, the absence of any predetermined meaning or purpose, can trigger existential dread. Many people retreat from this freedom back into the comfort of conventional values, precisely because this responsibility feels too heavy. But for those who can bear it, this responsibility brings unprecedented freedom. You begin to see that many of life's so-called necessities are actually choices. You don't have to pursue status markers that don't bring you joy. You don't have to maintain relationships that drain your energy. You don't have to hold beliefs that no longer make sense to you. This responsibility extends to how you interpret your life experiences. Nietzsche advocated what he called amor fati, love of fate. This doesn't mean passive acceptance of whatever happens, but rather taking ownership of your response to life's events. As he put it in Ecce Homo, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it." This attitude transforms how you view challenges. Rather than asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "How can I use this?" Rather than blaming circumstances or other people for your difficulties, you focus on your response. This isn't toxic positivity or denial of suffering. Nietzsche himself suffered tremendously from physical illness, but rather a refusal to be defined by external conditions. Taking responsibility also means abandoning victimhood narratives, even when they might be partially justified. Nietzsche was deeply suspicious of resentment, which he called ressentiment. He saw it as a poisonous emotion that keeps people trapped in cycles of blame rather than focused on creating value. Perhaps most importantly, taking responsibility means accepting that your time is finite. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche presents the thought experiment of eternal recurrence, the idea that you should live as if you would have to repeat your life exactly as it is, infinite times. This isn't offered as a metaphysical reality, but as a psychological test. Would you choose your life exactly as it is, with all its pain and struggle, if you had to live it over and over forever? This thought experiment cuts through the excuses we make for putting off authentic living. If this life is all there is, and if you would have to repeat it endlessly, wouldn't you want to fill it with experiences that truly matter to you, rather than those prescribed by society? While Nietzsche's philosophy is profound, translating it into practical action can be challenging. How do you actually stop caring what others think in a world designed to make you care? How do you become who you are when the pressure to conform is everywhere? First, develop awareness of social conditioning. Begin noticing when your choices are driven by anticipated approval or fear of judgment, rather than your authentic desires. This awareness alone creates distance between you and the automatic people-pleasing responses you've developed. Practice what psychologists now call differentiation, the ability to maintain your sense of self while in relationship with others. This doesn't mean complete independence, which is impossible for social creatures like humans, but rather interdependence, where you can value connection without losing yourself in it. Nietzsche would recommend periods of solitude as essential to this process. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he writes, "Go apart and be alone with your love and your creating. Only by temporarily removing yourself from social influence can you hear your own voice clearly." This might mean literal solitude, retreats, solo trips, daily periods of quiet, or it might mean cultivating an internal solitude where you can think independently even while physically surrounded by others. Develop comfort with being misunderstood. Nietzsche himself was chronically misinterpreted during his lifetime, yet he continued to write boldly. He understood that authentic expression inevitably leads to misunderstanding, because truly original thinking doesn't fit into pre-existing categories. As he puts it in The Gay Science, those who know that they are profound strive for clarity. Those who would like to seem profound strive for obscurity. Practice saying no without explanation. Many of us feel compelled to justify our choices to others, which reinforces the idea that we need their approval. Nietzsche would advise learning to say, "This doesn't work for me," or "I've decided to go another direction," without feeling obligated to convince others of your reasoning. Surround yourself with people who value authenticity over conformity. While Nietzsche emphasized individual strength, he didn't advocate complete isolation. The right relationships can actually support your journey toward authenticity. Look for friends who ask, "What do you truly want?" rather than "What will people think?" Develop what modern psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to handle challenges and achieve goals. This grows through progressive mastery experiences where you face fears and discover your capabilities. Start with small acts of authenticity and gradually tackle larger ones as your confidence grows. Cultivate a healthy relationship with criticism. Nietzsche didn't suggest becoming completely immune to others' opinions. That would be impossible, and even unwise. Instead, he advocated developing discernment about whose feedback matters. As he writes in Beyond Good and Evil, the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. Finally, embrace what Nietzsche called the great health, a vitality that comes from living in alignment with your nature. This isn't just physical but spiritual wellness that emerges when you stop fighting against your authentic self. You'll know you're on this path when you feel energized rather than drained by your choices, even when they involve challenge or difficulty. The practical path is neither quick nor linear. You'll have days of courageous authenticity, followed by moments of people-pleasing regression. But with consistent practice, the voice of social approval gradually loses its grip. As Nietzsche puts it in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. When you stop caring what others think, everything does change, but not in the simplistic way many self-help gurus suggest. It's not about becoming selfish or dismissive of others. Rather, it's about freeing yourself to make your unique contribution to the world. Nietzsche's philosophy isn't about reaching a state of perfect independence, which would be both impossible and undesirable for social creatures like ourselves. It's about developing the courage to hear and honor your own voice, even when it contradicts the chorus around you. As we've explored, this journey involves recognizing the herd mentality that shapes so much of our thinking, understanding how slave morality keeps us chained to others' expectations, embracing the task of becoming who we truly are, taking radical responsibility for our choices, and implementing practical strategies to build our authenticity muscles. This path isn't easy. There will be moments of doubt, periods of loneliness, and the constant temptation to retreat back into the comfort of conformity. But as Nietzsche reminds us, the secret of reaping the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment from life is to live dangerously. Living dangerously doesn't mean recklessness. It means risking disapproval for the sake of authenticity. It means being willing to stand alone when necessary. It means creating values rather than merely inheriting them. So I leave you with Nietzsche's challenge from The Gay Science. What if some day or night a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more"? Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus? Or have you once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? Let that be our standard to live so authentically that we could embrace the eternal return of our life, exactly as it is, not because it's perfect or painless, but because it's truly ours. If you found value in this exploration of Nietzsche's ideas, please like this video and consider subscribing for more philosophical content that challenges conventional thinking. Until next time, have the courage to become who you are.